Hi, this is PJ Manney, and you're listening to Your Beautiful Day on the Gratitude Radio Network.
Hey guys, welcome to Your Beautiful Day on the Gratitude Radio Network. I'm your host, Jen Mogg, Mother of Gratitude. And today we have with us Neil Haley. Hey, Neil.
Hey, what's going on, Jen? This topic interests me tremendously because of me and how I'm so into technology. And yet we see where we're going, and it's just like, why? I'm excited at how we're opening things up again. We're getting back to face to face. I cannot wait. I got a physical office that I launched July 1st. And so this is interesting. We bring up this conversation because we still are going to live this way. I don't even physically have to leave that office ever and find clients, find connections, everything just in the online world. So introduce our guest. I'll introduce our guest, but I wanted to tell you, Jen, thanks again. And so I'm excited to welcome PJ Manney. And PJ is the author of Con Science. And PJ really tries to connect something I think is so important. Good.
Conscience. It's called conscience.
Oh.
Oh.
You want to go with that as a joke or not? See, because I would have thought it. What would you say? Because con science, because it's either parentheses, conscience.
The three books, even though they have parentheses, are Revolution, Identity, and Conscience.
We're expanding our consciousness through technology and bringing humanity's, vibration up.
Wow. So even though it says it that way, that's really conscience. See? But see how the people could...
You're opening up your conscious right now. Just
saying. Yeah, exactly. So it's welcome, PJ. So I love this because that's the way, because you look at, see, as a marketer, I look at the parentheses, I would say that first. But it also is there's a reason you did that too, right? Or not?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. All the titles have the parentheses. So it's either revolution or evolution, or evolution. Identity is ID entity, so it's the idea of your ID or your id, and we're actually just entities that we move beyond being human into this idea of being a persona or an entity. And then with conscience, it's the idea of the con science being against science, but also the idea that the villains and also some of the protagonists throughout the story are perpetrating cons, like con artistry. Everyone's trying to pretend to be something they're not. They're lying to people.
You're hitting such a chord this afternoon. My gosh, PJ, when I bring up Clubhouse, have you been on Clubhouse yet, PJ?
Oh, yeah.
You know exactly. This book should be handed out in every room to see the lies that are perpetrated on that app. They say who they say they are when they really aren't. I at least am a nationally syndicated radio and TV host and a category director for Podcast Magazine. When you see these people highlight their accomplishments, you're like, well, why when we look you up online, those aren't the accomplishments? And that is exactly what you're talking about.
Yes.
Playing that con and using science to do it. So that's exactly. a great thought process. Why did you write that book? Tell me.
Because I see what's coming. It's the intersection of artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, and communications technologies. This idea that we can start to create virtual realities, that we can inhabit spaces that don't actually exist, and we become people that don't actually exist. So just back to your Clubhouse analogy, here we are in this virtual space. We have no bodies in Clubhouse. We're just voices, and we're just a little bit of the tag of whatever it is that we've sold ourselves as, right?
Right.
And from that, we can create any reality we want. And unfortunately, people are using those fake realities to convince other people that they're not who they are. And so I wrote these books because I wanted to have a fun way of telling a fun, action-filled roller coaster story where we get to see all the ramifications of these new technologies. Because what happens with technology is that we get a new technology and it's morally neutral.
Right.
Swords and plowshares. We can take any technology and make it a really good healing thing, like the technologies in my book are brain-computer interfaces and various forms of artificial intelligence, but they can be weaponized.
Yeah.
And we're living in a society where we don't really get that yet. We understand it maybe a little bit, but people haven't taken that in as a reality that we're going to start to need to deal with at the level of a whole society. So, how do we legislate against that? How do we
Exactly.
have social structures that inhibit that kind of behavior? What are these things going to do, and how does it either build a culture or tear it apart?
Exactly. And not just that, I mean, keeping our humanity
That's exactly right.
in the core of everything. I mean, nobody walks, I mean, I go around room to room and I'm all of a sudden going, why am I still holding my phone?
Right.
I
Right.
can't take my dog out in the backyard unless I have my phone with me. And I don't even know. I was thinking today on the back porch, how did this even happen? How did we get to this far? Before it was like when we had our phones, a portable phone, it was great, but we left it and we still went out and did what we were doing. Now we're so involved in it. What is it going to look like for my kids? I mean, you're seeing people get the implants in their hands to open up the doors, the car, all of their information is in the vials in their hand so that they can do everything like it's magic. But how do we get to be back to the flesh and bones that we are and expanding our consciousness versus shaping our reality to be something that's really easy that we don't have to think about and then we forget how to do it?
Well, it's interesting because convenience is the
Lead in.
the lead in. It's the devil in the details.
It is.
We think that this is such a convenient thing to have,
Yes.
but we don't look down the line at the consequences, and often the unintended consequences, because I can promise you, knowing many of these people, because I work and am friends with so many people in Silicon Valley and the tech industries, they don't think about the smart houses where you've got your RFID implant, and you walk in and it opens your door and it answers your phone. They don't think of these as anything but, isn't this cool?
Isn't
Like,
it fun?
I can do it. They don't think if they should do it. They just wonder if they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
And the bigger issue becomes the unintended consequences. So, what happens when you have a completely smart house? Now, I'm someone who writes about technology all the time. I know technologists, I'm embedded in the thing. I have the dumbest house on earth. And that's for a reason. I have the dumbest house on earth because, first of all, we lose our electricity in California all the time.
Right.
I don't want a house that is dependent on a generator. If I want to be able to lift my blinds, I want to be able to lift my blinds and not need something that's electric to do it. But beyond that, it's nobody's business what goes on either in my house or in anybody else's house. That's just data that's being accrued. And that data can be used either by marketers or it can be used by governments. And you have no concept of how much data is out there
That's
that they
crazy.
know about you. Like, to me, the world's worst items would be something that's listening in my house for my
Right,
orders. That's
right.
crazy because they say they don't keep the data. That's not true. They've been using the data to study voice recognition. So, why would I do that?
That's so true. And the problem we deal with is they record all our stuff. So if we could be talking to something on a cell phone about something, you get the ad 30 minutes later, an hour later, 2 hours later.
That's correct.
Even in the conversation on Zoom or wherever. I don't know how they do it. I guess they record it and then it ends up in an ad. So it kind of
Some of it is not as nefarious as you think. Some of it is well. Let me. So let's say we're having Zoom right now, right? And I may get an ad an hour from now for the Neil Haley show, but really, it has my email. That's where they've got my data. So it's not that they're necessarily like Zoom isn't necessarily listening right now. They might be,
they are.
but we put that data in so many other places that we don't even realize.
See, but I'll give you an example, PJ, and I'm going to let Jen ask the next question. So I'll talk about specific certain technology with somebody on the cell phone. And then that say and think I'm looking to do this without sending emails, without visiting websites. And it ends up in an ad in Facebook the next day.
Is your Facebook app open?
Yes.
There you go. So actually, it's Facebook that's doing the listening.
So what do you mean? So you don't recommend having an app for Facebook?
No, I'm just saying that when you have apps open, that's just one more way that they can collect data. So you just keep the app closed. Don't. So for instance, I can probably show you on my own phone. If on your own phone, you're going to have a bunch of things that are open at any given time. So if you have those things open, just close them.
Oh, that's not, so that's why it's open. I keep all my apps open. So wow. So you're telling me the app listens?
Yeah, all the apps
It's
listen.
possible. It's possible. Do I work for Facebook? No. Do I have 100% knowledge of this? No. Do they lie all the time? Yes.
Yes.
So everybody does because they don't want you to know exactly. First of all, they don't want other companies to know their proprietary information. But more importantly, they don't want people to feel uncomfortable with these products that they're putting into our lives. And I understand that, but by the same token, I also wish people understood the extent to which they are sharing their lives. Now, some people have no problem with this, and that's okay. That's their choice. My choice is different.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And here's the weird thing is I was at the doctor's office and it's more of a weight loss type of place that I'm looking into all these new technology and lights and the whole nine yards. And I can say to Siri, no, Alexa, Alexa, play that song in here. And it will stop it throughout the entire office and play it specifically in the patient room, mine. So then I have to go, yeah, yeah, it listens to
Wow.
my voice and it shuts everything else off. And Alexa's, and I don't even have an Alexa. So it's not the voice recognition. I don't even know where it is now because now they're all getting frustrated because now it's listening to me. And I'm
That's
like that
hilarious. Yeah,
song.
that's a
I'm
product I'll never
sorry.
have. That's a product I'll never have.
You're not gonna have Alexa?
Oh no, never.
Yeah, I am, buddy. I am, I don't like
So I
Siri.
think
I don't like any of those. It's not my thing. It's not my bag, baby. It's not. And I don't want things listening in on me. I want the old Bose speakers that just blast the music when I
so
want it and not be
exactly
listening
okay.
to me.
We're going to have a point where we're going to start offering products that are the counter to the convenience that we're living with now. We're going to start having things where people want to live in the equivalent of their Faraday box, of their, their lead-lined room. They're going to want to be cut off because to be not cut off all the time, I think is affecting us also psychologically.
Yes.
We're on all the time. We get companies communicate to us all the time. Marketers communicate to us all the time. We're never off, and that's starting to affect us all psychologically.
And
How do you
especially
think it's
with
going
the
to affect
pandemic.
children? Sorry,
Oh,
Neil.
way too
How
much
do you
children.
think that that's going to affect children? Because now I'm seeing, I mean, when the iPads came out, that was what they're giving their kids as their babysitters now. You get a child born, here's your iPad, leave me alone, kid. And it has taken over my kids' lives when someone brought over an iPad. And I'm like, no, I still want game boards because I know those boards are going to be gone once they see the iPad, and they have been.
It's true. It's really interesting. So the way we raised our kids, my son to this day laughs. We didn't allow video games in the house. When the kids were old enough to actually use their own computers and have computer games, that was one thing. I let them do that because there was actually a social element to some of the massive online gaming. And again, age appropriate. They were not getting anything that wasn't age appropriate, but I wanted them to read. I wanted them to go outside. In the summer, and I'm from the East Coast, so it's a very East Coast thing, I would send them to summer camp.
Hmm.
And the summer camps had no electronics, they wore uniforms, no jewelry, no makeup. I mean, they basically stepped off the planet and into nature for 2 months because they needed it. And they would come back, and there was this kind of magic time right after we'd pick them up, where they'd be like so open and so free and so calm and so themselves. And they hadn't yet thought, oh, I better check my phone. It was magic, like for 2 weeks after, it was this incredible time. But the difference in watching those kids go through that and then come back and then reintegrate, it made it really clear to them now. They're adults now. It made them really clear to them now that they need time to just literally step off the planet. And they're big mountain people. They're always in nature. They're always hiking and biking and climbing and all the rest, because they realized they can't do what they do, which is very internet intensive. My son is a tech CEO, and he can't do that and then not break away and find himself again.
Hmm, interesting. And that's the problem we get in this addiction factor. So is that where the technology and humanity, because if humanity disappears, then what happens to us?
Well, the tech addiction is built in. It's baked in. So every app you use has people who are there to design systems to make it sticky.
Like what was the Netflix show? The
Yes. I'm blanking too, but the
Yeah,
next. Yeah.
yeah, where they showed where they literally would put people in a confrontation or have somebody to see a certain photo of somebody just to keep them on longer, just to hook them longer. Clubhouse
Exactly.
does the same thing. I'm ready to get off. 5 minutes later, somebody comes in that changes the narrative to want me to stay longer. It's like they're
Or they
working.
tell you your friends are on this one, so now
Yeah,
just switch rooms and go into this room. And I've been watching the change in the algorithms really carefully with things like Clubhouse and Facebook and Twitter. The algorithms have been shifting, and they're getting stickier and stickier because there has been a movement away from social media. People
yes,
are starting to shut it off, so they're getting more and more aggressive
yes,
in their hooks that they've embedded into
exactly.
that. Yeah, it's so interesting to
Just like
watch.
exactly if you watch that Netflix Social Dilemma, right?
Yeah,
Is
social
that
dilemma.
okay?
Uh,
I'm uh,
I've seen so many of them.
the one I saw, the one I'm seeing is the one that's made by Netflix, where it has the whole beginning, where it's acting, a portion of acting, and a portion of documentary,
Yes,
which
exactly. Same
which
one
was
we're
a
thinking about.
really really good one because it really showed everything of how they do things. And this is before Clubhouse, and it totally spells what Clubhouse is. People don't understand they're being rigged, they're being hooked. And the bigger the crowds, the bigger the rooms that people build up, they put people in those rooms that don't really get along with each other. It happened to me the first couple of weeks where they put the same competitors in the same room just on happen. It happened, and then it causes friction like high school, what gets people to keep coming back.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Look, human psychology is actually pretty simple. We're very hierarchical. We always want to be with the people we perceive are above us, and we want to be with our friends, and we want to be with people we think are like us. That's what social media does.
Yeah.
And Clubhouse especially, the whole hierarchical structure of Clubhouse, where you start in a room and you're not on stage, and you may want to be on stage, and it's all of these psychological hooks. It's a very clever system. But of course, as you and I said before, who even knows if those guys on stage are who those guys say they are? I don't know. I'm listening to some of these rooms going, I don't know, dude, you're kind of full of it.
Exactly.
So
Unless you're dropping gems and different things. But I've gotten to the point where I'm only going to run rooms that I'm running, or I'm part of the club I am, which is Club Pod, which is the largest podcasting club on Clubhouse. And I know I'm going to get quality people in the room, get to drop my knowledge and value, and my own room, not others. I'll jump in their rooms just to gain some followers or potential clients. But my focus is going to be on rooms that really are going to just provide value, or I just don't want to be part of them. I'll do room surfing at times, but it's crazy. These people that say they're millionaires and billionaires on there. And I just say, I don't know. That doesn't sound like somebody that how so yeah, but that's the social dilemma. Jen, you have to watch the social dilemma on Netflix. You'll be absolutely see how we're all hooked through social media. Addiction, TikTok, people could stay on for 24 hours a day because of the way they set it up to constantly have a good video that you like and they gauge based on what you see, all that.
Well, I was watching Bliss last night, and I thought that was on Netflix. The movie that's out with Sam. Sam or Hayek, and to where it's the alternative reality, and that they can't figure out which reality is correct. Is it the reality that they're going into for higher consciousness, or are they really homeless people living off the grid taking drugs?
Right.
And
Well,
but it really makes you think and wonder. When we talk about the intersection of technology and humanity, how does the political unrest in your book parallel with our real world that we're experiencing?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it corresponds a lot.
yeah.
Uh, and the crazy part is I started writing about this stuff in the mid 2000s, and because I could see what was coming. So my background is also history, and I was an American Studies major, and I became intrigued by the notion of how history often seems to repeat itself.
Yes,
I
always.
got I got intrigued by a group of academics who study something called cliodynamics, which is about the cyclical study of history. It's actually the dynamics of history. And what they were doing is they weren't historians. They were actually all scientists. They were, people studied ecosystems, and they started looking at us as humans as an animal ecosystem, predator prey cycles, feast and famine cycles, all the things we do when we study an ecosystem to see what kind of animals are going to survive, what kind of animals are going to die off. And they discovered that when they started putting in all this historical data, we have these really even 50-ish years, 40 to 60 years, but 50-ish years cycles in the United States of political violence. But with that political violence, and this starts from the revolution, the first major genocide of the Indians, the
Yeah.
Civil War, Jim Crow, the civil rights movement, and then today. What those correspond with are the same patterns throughout history of income inequality, of political unrest because of political polarization, of a sense among elites that they've got to fight amongst themselves because there are fewer seats at the table. And then that discord filters down into the society because each side wants to win.
Right.
There are a whole bunch of things that again, when we look at them, it's like watching some ecosystem going through, some cataclysm. And I realized it was coming again. so,
Yes. Yes.
so I started writing these books, and the what we have right now is kind of this perfect storm of a combination of the same unrest that we have regularly.
Right.
But we also have this new technology that has been added on top of it, which makes it very hard for people to figure out what reality is. And that inability to trust, when we lose trust in a society, it
Right.
falls apart.
Exactly.
So these were the things that I was trying to address in my story of how do we what happens when we have a culture that is falling apart from a lack of trust, from a lack of understanding what reality is, because we're able to change what people think reality is. It's beyond
The
propaganda.
the
It's
the, the,
now,
vir- the virtual reality is the next thing, right? Which was starting.
yes.
When that happens, that you can get into any world you want at all times, how's that going to destroy us?
Like the
There are going to
movie
be people who
Bliss?
just check out and go, I'm going over there. you know, for
We see
what
this in science fiction all the time. So science fiction is going to bring reality at one point in time.
Yes.
Everything in science fiction.
Everything
well,
in science fiction is coming true.
look, we're an imaginative bunch, but we also see, I guess good science fiction understands how people work and how people think and what they really want. All humans want the same thing. They want connection, they want security, food, shelter.
Right.
They want they want people like them around them. And it's getting harder and harder to get those things.
Right.
So they're going to look for it any way they can find it. And sometimes we have to manufacture those things. Now, the funny part is the flip side of all these horrible things I'm saying. I mean, the internet has actually brought people together as well as split them apart. So there's a paradox. It's neither one nor the other. You know, you can all say, look at all the people you've met in your work. They don't live anywhere near you. You would never have met them any other way. But the internet brought you people together, and you now have a community that's a virtual community. And that's fantastic. The flip side is some of those people are being brought together for not such good purposes. And
Hmm.
their minds are being bent in ways that aren't positive, and they're being motivated to do things that aren't good. And that's the dilemma we're now facing. That on one hand, you know, when the people who created the internet, well, that was actually a military thing, that's a different thing, but the people who expanded the internet, the early tech guys, had this utopian version of what the internet could do and what the internet could bring, because they honestly believed that it would create connection and bring about this kind of one mind global utopia. What they didn't realize is, unfortunately, people were involved. And that's not how people work. So what the internet is, it's a giant lens. All of these technologies are a giant lens that are just magnifying the good and the bad of what we're capable of doing.
So how do we find our balance?
Oh, that's what it's all about.
How do you find that balance? Because it's so blingy and fun and creative, and you can get in there and lose yourself, and people have. And it's great, but at the same time, being grounded and knowing that this is who we are, this is what we're rocking in this life, and have it accentuate. I've got some of the greatest relationships. They're on the other side of the planet. Um, it's just, how do we take this beautiful gift for humanity and then bring it about so that everybody has gratitude in their life? That's my goal. This is why I'm put on the earth, that has gratitude for where they are, and they're able to use their gifts and not go down the slippery slope of losing the core of who they are because of technology.
I think a lot of it has to do with creating empathy and understanding that we have this extraordinary technology where we can be in other people's shoes in such a profound way. And that's a gift. That's an incredible gift. I think that also separating ourselves from it, like I was saying, going out into nature, being outside, understanding that this is just a portal into a communication technology. Also, you know, wow, love. I mean, it's all about love. And if we need to figure out how to create that connection, how to create that love, any way we know how. What worries me is the people who are using the internet for hate and for outrage and for all the rest. And again, it magnifies that. I mean, that's what it's good at. Um, but if we could use it more for creating connection, creating empathy, creating love, and sharing the good stuff. Let's stop sharing all the bad stuff all the time. Let's try to share some good stuff
I like
as
that.
well, in a way that actually connects with people, where we're reaching each other because we're telling each other stories. Now, that's something I write a lot about in nonfiction, and that is storytelling is an empathy engine. You know, when you tell a story, you embed yourself, or you allow someone to embed themselves in the shoes of the characters you've created. And there's so many good things we could do by telling stories.
Yes. Mhm. All right,
That
Jen. Yeah.
sorry,
Sorry.
go on.
There we go, PJ. Continue. Finish up your thought.
I really want us to concentrate as much as possible in telling positive stories, in telling stories that also show how it's done. Not just, oh, that's really lovely, they have a wonderful life. I want to know how those people got there. I want to know how they made other people happier, better, created more positivity in the
Yes.
world.
All right, Jen, go ahead and ask the gratitude question. for
Oh my
PJ.
goodness. I have so savored this day with you, PJ. I love everything that you're doing and continue to do. But I do have one question I ask everybody on the show is there one moment that you can remember that brought you into gratitude and that changed where you are now and brought you to where you are? Like that one gratitude moment.
For me, it would have to be about family. It would be, I am unbelievably blessed. And I know this. I know how blessed I am. I have the most wonderful husband and I have the most wonderful children. And they don't only support me, we support them. I actually don't know how people do it without that. You know, we are each other's cheerleaders. We're each other's goads. We are each other's support system. And we've been able to accomplish so much because we are this incredible positive force in each other's lives. And I mean, that to me is everything.
That's great. That's a fantastic way to say it for sure. All right, Jen. So get ready to close out PJ. But whoa, I just love this conversation. She'll have to jump on Clubhouse with a conversation like that because I tell you, that would interest people. If I brought you onto the stage and just started.
Anytime, Neil.
Okay. Go ahead, Jen.
Oh my goodness, how much fun. And it's so this conversation is one that we're going to have 40 years, 50 years, 100 years from now
In
on
space. In
technology
space, Jen.
in
In
space.
space.
In space. Oh, we'll be like the Jetsons by then, right?
No, space is about 10 years away, Jen. Be ready.
Yeah, it is. That's actually what I'm writing next.
Oh, I have to connect you to my business partner, and she's trying to get me into the space technology. So I'll connect you guys.
Cool.
I love that. Well, thank you all for listening to us today on your beautiful day at the Gratitude Radio Network. We've been listening to PJ Manning. Her book is Conscience. She's an author, futurist, consultant for various organizations about the future of humanity and technology. And I am so thankful and honored to have you on our show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you guys so much. It's been a lot of fun.
It has, except me fouling up the name of the book. So that's okay. But I thought it was perfect. I think it's perfect.
You're the only one.
No, that's the perfect. But I'm going to keep it. I'm not editing that out. That's the perfect
excellent.
way, because we didn't like do ums and ahs. We just had a fun conversation. And that's what Jen and I do. So go ahead, close it out, Jen. Yeah.
You're our Tigger. You're the only one.
Go ahead, Jen.
I love it. I love it. Well, wherever you go today, take empathy with you, take love with you, take gratitude with you for your own life. Download it from heaven and send it out. And remember that you're blessed, you are loved, and you are sacred. Mwah. We love you. Thank you so much, PJ. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you. You guys take care.